As we continue on our Chicago Bears rookie preview series, today we're talking about 7th round running back Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers, and no one better here to help us than Kristian Dyer, beat reporter at Scarlet Nation of 24/7 Sports. Kristian, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today, man.
No, it's exciting. It's exciting to see Kyle take the next step. Knew him since high school, so this is a fun part of the process.
Let's get into it then. That's perfect start there. High school as a recruit to Rutgers, what was kind of his background and the commitment to Rutgers and what kind of played out from there?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a funny recruitment. Now, keep in mind, I know people in Big Ten land, in Chicago, right in the heart of Big Ten land, are familiar with Greg Schiano from his time at Rutgers, time in the NFL, obviously, a couple years as head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then defensive coordinator at Ohio State for a couple years. Schiano comes back, takes over Rutgers program that's really struggling. And one of the first people that he calls upon his return is the head coach at Don Bosco Prep. And for those that don't know, Don Bosco Prep is one of those programs. North Jersey parochial football is very strong, among the strongest conferences in the country. And having those good relationships is a good thing for Rutgers in terms of recruiting. And the coach kept talking about Kyle Monangai. I said, trust me, you're not going to regret taking this kid. And at this point, Monangai had only one, what we would consider a Power 4 now offer, and that was Cal Berkeley, right? I think we might make the joke now that the ACC is on the outside looking in, and it's really a Power 3, but that's just a slight dig on the ACC. So Schiano offered Monangai pretty much on the spot. Monangai has a strong pedigree, his brother having played at Villanova and then in the NFL. And Monangai comes in, strong academics, but very much with a chip on his shoulder. Fast forward a couple years, and it is Monangai who takes over the running back spot for Isaiah Pacheco, someone everyone is very familiar with, now acclimating well. Also a 7th round pick of the Kansas City Chiefs. So hopefully with the Bears, Monangai will have some similar output from the 7th round selection. If so, Chicago is going to be rolling into the playoffs. But with all that being said, Kyle really kind of came in with a bunch of Ivy League offers, high academic offers, despite being on one of the top programs in the state, was very much overlooked. And there were running backs on his roster, on the Don Bosco roster, that were ranked higher than he was. So he is someone who's always going to come in with a point to prove. I think falling to the 7th round is going to be just like his recruitment. And when he's overlooked, Kyle steps up.
You talked about Pacheco and Rutgers, and I look at Rutgers, and since Schiano came back, couple below 500 seasons, but the last 2 years above 500. They won a bowl game for first time in 10 or so years, I want to say. It is. What was Monangai able to learn from Pacheco and then kind of take, when he did become the full-time running back and the leader there?
Yeah. Well, first off, Rutgers has a good reputation of running backs and sending them to the next level. There's Pacheco, and before that, in Schiano 1.0, keeping in mind this is his second time, who says he can't come home, right? Yeah. There was Ray Rice, there was Brian Leonard, who both had very strong, very solid NFL careers. Michael Burton, who's a fullback with the Denver Broncos. He's been in the league a long time. So
former Bear.
What was that? Former Bear, right?
Former Bear.
And a wonderful guy and a great human being. As well, Michael Burton. But yeah, so there is certainly a track record for Rutgers with sending guys to the NFL and having success in the NFL with running backs. And I think the most important thing that Kyle learned, or maybe two things from Pacheco, one was patience, right? You've got a feature running back like an Isaiah Pacheco, who never cracked 1,000 yards rushing at Rutgers, believe it or not. And that was because the offensive line at the time was among the worst, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. They were having a hard time against FCS programs getting things rolling. That's how poor the offensive line was that Schiano inherited. So one, I think he learned patience, kind of having to bide his time, work on special teams. There could have been a lot of opportunities for Kyle Monangai to hit that transfer portal and get going, and he refused to do it. So one is really a matter of character. And I think the second thing is something that's been talked a lot about from the media in Chicago when it comes to Kyle, and that is ball security. He was always a physical, tough running back when he was in high school. But really stepping up to the next level and not having a single fumble in what is arguably the toughest conference in college football. You're playing Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan State and Wisconsin, and being able to not just run for, consistently in the triple digits against those programs, but being able to do so where the focal point is the ball is the program. So learning that from Pacheco as well, kind of really Isaiah Pacheco's work ethic in terms of strength and conditioning and everything else he poured into himself to get himself to the level where he was at. The focus was on ball control and ball security. And I think Kyle really learned those two things while he bade his time.
What was his breakout season? I'm looking, looks like 2023, 1,000 yards rushing, had back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons. That 2023 breakout season, what kind of changed for him? Was it just because he became a starter full-time, or was it improvement since he arrived in 2020?
Yeah, opportunity. I think it really was. I think he was ready. He would not have certainly come on out, and basically in his first full year starting was the Big Ten's leading rusher. You don't see that too often. And what Zach, one of the things that Rutgers and Schiano prides themselves on, and I know, being in the Midwest and being in the heart of Big Ten land, people snicker a little bit about Rutgers, but this is a program that has consecutive winning seasons, that won a bowl game, beat a very good Miami team last year in the Pinstripe Bowl. Probably should have beaten Kansas City State if their communications, the coaches' communications, didn't go haywire in the second half. So you're looking at a program that's a solid program. And it took a long time to ramp up, and there was a lot of bumps and bruises on the way. But Schiano has prided himself on being a developmental program. And I think Kyle Monangai is kind of the poster child for that. And this is going to speak to the mentality that he brings, that he will bring to the NFL every single day. And that's, I'm going to get better. I'm going to work hard. He went from one Power 4 offer, not knowing where he was going to go to college football, to being one of the Big Ten's top rushers over the past 2 years. And it wasn't a straight line, right? It was hard work, it was dedication, it was patience, and it was development. The other thing you should probably know about this process for Kyle is that he's an outstanding student. He took supply chain management, which is not basket weaving, right? This is not and I'm going to say this is not a Florida State degree. But Rutgers is a top 40 institution, and it's up there with some of the great ones in the Big Ten, such as Illinois and Northwestern. And he took a very difficult degree, did it very well. He had Ivy League offers coming out of high school. So he's a smart kid. And when he figures out how to do it at the next level, I don't know if he's going to have Isaiah Pacheco level contributions, but he's going to be a good, solid running back and a good ambassador for the Bears for years to come.
You mentioned the protecting the football. When I watch him run, he looks kind of like a bowling ball. He kind of just looks like he's a wrecking ball going through.
Angry runner, yeah.
Angry, yes. What about his pass protection? Because that's obviously key for a rookie, and that's very key for what Ben Johnson wants to do. What's his pass protection like?
Yeah, I wrote an article about that 2 years ago, following the Northwestern game, and people go back and see that was the season opener for both teams. It was August, and that was kind of the game where Rutgers ascended and sort of kind of took that next step in the Big Ten under Schiano. And there's one point, I believe it was in the second quarter, where Kyle just picks up a North 10 linebacker and just levels him. Okay. I mean, he doesn't even leave his feet. He just levels the guy. And that plays itself out consistently. He has a low center of gravity. He has tremendous upper body strength. His pass protection is outstanding. And I think one of the underappreciated things about Kyle Monangai is that he also is not bad with the ball, catching the ball out of the backfield. Okay. He didn't get a lot of opportunities out of it for Rutgers. They would sprinkle in some other running backs to do it that maybe had a little bit more of the home run speed. But he's going to be solid out there. So if he's in for pass pro and there's no one to pick up and you float him out there, he's going to get the opportunity. He's going to hold on to the ball and he's going to make something positive from it.
Why do you think he fell in the draft? I know it's a really deep running back class. When I did kind of research on him in the Big Ten, you talk about Caleb Johnson and Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Junkins, but Monangai was a pretty damn good back. Why do you think he fell? Was it just, do you think too many running backs? It was just kind of that luck, or it was too deep of a class?
It was definitely a deep class. I know there was some talk that he might have been a day two guy, and I never really thought that was going to be serious because he's not the biggest guy in terms of stature,
Okay.
which is going to be fine. But that 40 time that he ran at the combine did hurt the perception of him a little bit. But I think it's going to come down to, like in Moneyball, right?
Yeah.
When you're watching that movie, there's that great line. His deficiency is that he throws funny, right? And they were talking about a reliever, and the production is there. Everything you want is there. The Kyle Monangai's deficiency is that he doesn't run a fast 40. You watch him go out, and he did it against Ohio State 2 years ago, where he kind of pinged out, and then he's just for 40 yards, just taking off. And if his 40 time wasn't in the 4.6, it was a high 4.5. He's gone for a touchdown, and Rutgers may have upset the then number one team in the country. With that being said, Zach, he's not a guy with great breakaway speed, but
Okay.
he's a guy who's going to get you 4, 5, 6 yards. He's always going to fall forward. He's going to churn out the yards, and that's what made him a day 3 pick and a 7th round pick. If he was a shade faster in the 40, I think he probably would have gone in the 5th or 6th round. With all that being said, he plays a little bit faster with his pads on. I feel confident saying that.
The last one for you, Kristian, and thanks again for taking the time today to do this. If you could point Bears fans to one game from Kyle to watch in his career, what highlight tape would that be?
Yeah, I would look at that Ohio State game from 2 years ago. You're going up against, it was a game where Rutgers was up on Ohio State midway through the third quarter. Not a lot of people remember that. They saw the final score line by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Rutgers doesn't have a bad interception midway through the third quarter. They were knocking on the door for another touchdown. That was a game where Kyle, I think, really showed that he could play at that NFL level. He answered an awful lot of questions in that game against an elite defense. So I think that's going to be probably one of those games where you're just going to look at it and go, okay, this guy can do it. He's not going to be a home run hitter for us, but he can be someone who can get consistently 3, 4, 5 yards, churn it out, move the sticks type for us.
Awesome. Kristian, where can everyone follow you? Where can everyone read your work? Anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, maybe we made some Rutgers fans today. ScarletNation.com on the 24/7 network. We're going to be covering Kyle a lot, so I'm sure we're going to be bumping into each other, Zach.
Yeah.
But I'm going to reiterate it again. Not only a very good football player, but an even better human being.
Awesome.
Just a family first type of young man. And there have been very few athletes in my almost 20 years covering sports where when you sit down with them, you get goosebumps talking to them. And it's not because of his greatness. I've interviewed Pele and Joe Namath and other ones. It's the fact that he is a really outstanding young man that's impressive. So hopefully you'll have some fun covering him, and I think he's going to give Bears fans a lot of good memories.
Awesome. That's perfect to hear, and that's what we're hoping for. So thanks again, man. Really appreciate it.
I can't go without saying, "Duh, Bears."
There you go. Our fans will like that.